Welcome to Roots and Riches, the podcast where we believe that personal and financial well-being are uniquely yours and no one size fits all. Here on this journey, we're all about empowering you to take control of your life, your finances, building wealth that resonates both outwardly and inwardly. I'm Janiska Jules, the dynamic force behind Roots and Riches. In each episode, we'll dive into ways social, economic, and other policy mindsets impact our identities. Join us as we uncover stories, strategies, and insights that will help you forge a path to personal and financial richness, embracing the unique journey that is yours alone. So get ready to dig into your roots, discover your riches, transform your future. Welcome to Roots and Riches. Let's start building your legacy. Today on Roots and Riches, we are thrilled to welcome Attorney Natchia Jules-Toussaint, who, along with her law partner and husband, is the owner of the law office of Jules-Toussaint LLC. Their law office practices family law, criminal law, personal injury, immigration law, and probate and estate planning. They have offices in South Florida, the Fort Pierce, and Palm Bay area. With nearly 2 decades of experience as practicing attorney, Natchia is a member of the Florida Bar and St. Lucie County Bar Association. She's also admitted to the practice law in several federal courts, including the Southern District Court of Florida, the Middle District Court of Florida, and the United States Tax Court. She is a graduate of the University of Florida and the Thomas M. Cooley Law School of Western Michigan University, where she received her JD, Juris Doctor, and a LLM, Master's in Law and Taxation degree. Natchia was born in Haiti and immigrated to the U.S. at an early age along with her family. Join us as Natchia shares her journey and insights on entrepreneurship with practical strategies for personal and professional growth. So with that, thank you, Natchia, for joining this podcast. And let's start with everybody just telling everybody a bit about yourself and what made you to decide to open up your own practice.
Well, let me just say hi to everyone and thank you for having me on the podcast, Janoska.
Not a problem. I'm grateful for you to join me.
Yeah, ma'am. So I did not know before I come here what it was called, but I actually love it. Roots and Riches. So I love it. So to get back to your question, why I opened up my practice. So when I got out of law school, I had an LLM in taxation and I had a mentor. I had one of my professors was a mentor, and I was my mentor actually, and she got me an internship with the IRS. And so as I came out of law school, I went to intern directly with the IRS before I even got my license, and I was there for about a year. And I remember there was another attorney there. He was the only minority attorney, a gentleman there. His name is William. I forgot what his last name was. Him and I used to go to lunch, and he'll take me in. And I really wanted to get a job at the IRS when I got out because I really thought, I'll be putting my LLM in use, and I really enjoyed being there. And then Will told me, well, I call him Will, but he told me that, the only way you'll get a spot is when I retire.
So meaning once somebody gets a position, they don't leave.
They don't leave.
Okay.
I don't know if it was for the benefit package. Anyway, moving forward, I took a job with the 19th Circuit Judicial Public Defender's Office in Florida after after searching for a long time for a corporate job. And, I'd passed the bar, I had my license, and I took a job with the public defender's office because that was my other interest, was public interest. So as I started out with Diamond Liddy, she was the public defender then. I think she still is. She's been in that position forever. So I realized financially, although I was interested in public interest and I loved it at the public defender's office, but financially, as a young law student coming out of law school, getting a starting salary of $42,000, if you're planning ahead to build a family, it's not sustainable. I couldn't stay there. And on top of it, I had student loans that amount to almost $200,000. So I could not stay at the public defender's office. I loved it. And then again, I had another supervisor who gave me another wake-up call. Mickey McMurtry was my supervisor at the public defender's office. And she had worked for the state for about 17 years, and she became a supervising attorney for the public defender's office. And she told me, well, when I retired in 20 years, you can have my position. And it sort of like wake me up, and I'm like, not only I have massive student debt that needs to be repaid, and my husband and I were planning on starting a family, and I just realized this is not going to work. I can't wait for 20 years to become somebody's supervisor and make probably $10,000 more. So, and I'm not saying this is for everyone. So my husband was already self-employed, and I saw what opportunities there was financially being self-employed. So I decided, wait, I'm leaving. I had to go start out on my own, not trying to jump ahead of the group, but I also had no desire to be on the waiting list. So going back to really about a year or two after I started working with the public defenders, Willie called me and told me he was retiring. And was encouraging me to apply with the IRS, but I was already 2 years in with the state, and I'm like, let me finish my 3 years. But I started out because the plan that I had for myself, I wasn't gonna be able to get there as fast as I wanted to by working for someone else. I couldn't start a family on a $42,000 salary, because that's how much I started at the public defender's office. And then I figured I could do the same thing that I'm doing now, which I'm still helping the community. I'm one of those attorneys who actually, I'm not saying I do pro bono work, but I lowered my fees to address my community, to make sure the people who are deserving of the service, who are in need of my service, can afford my service. So I do take cases on a lower rate sometimes, and I sign up with the Florida Bar, and I'm one of the few members of the low fee panel. That's what they call it. So we can still do and help, but also not be lacking financially and be able to provide for ourselves and our family. So that was my primary reason to start on my own and branching out and opening a law firm.
So you pretty much figured out how to still create a livable income for yourself and serve the community, but not in the way you always thought you were going to do it, or originally envisioned it.
Yes, that's pretty much it. Like I said, I do family law, and I do elder law planning, and estate planning. So that, like right now, you're still providing the same service that most of these people will not be able to afford at a different law firm. I offer a lower fee. I offer some kind of payment plan to some of my clients sometimes, because some people are just in between. They don't qualify for legal aid, for example, but they don't qualify for a public defender, but they're also needing the service, and they don't make enough to go pay $10,000, $15,000 retainer at a different law firm. So giving them that option where they can still get the service and as well be able to afford your service. Not that our service is any less than a $15,000 law firm, but it's the rate.
Good. So with that, does that mean you're serving a big part of the community that's normally not serviced? Meaning, are you one of the few people, you and your husband, meeting that groups need? Because I'm not too familiar, what are the statistics behind it, but...
I think so. For example, clearly, if you're getting a divorce right now, I'm talking about just within St. Lucie County. I'm not even going down Mountain County, which is a neighboring county to our county. St. Lucie County, the minimum rate for single divorce, for example, like an uncontested divorce, meaning you have no children, no assets. If you go to any other law firm, they will ask you about $3,500. I can still do an uncontested divorce with no children, no asset, and offer this client a fixed rate and not a retainer, not put them on a retainer. I said, okay, if you're telling me your wife is signing a marital settlement agreement, I can prepare all the document. I'm charging you $2,500. It's a fixed rate. You're not being billed per hour. You're still getting your divorce done. And I think it satisfied the need of that person.
Okay.
Okay. As opposed to them going to Stewart or Martin County and paying someone $5,000 on a retainer basis for them to do an uncontested divorce with no minor children.
So with that said, who tend to be your clients? Meaning, are they coming from all walks of life? Or, you know, in terms of...
I do. I'm sorry, I should have let you finish. I do. We are located in Fort Pierce, and we also have an office in Palm Bay. So we do have people from all walk of life working into our office. Like I said, our service is no less than a big firm, or we don't treat the client based on how much you pay us. We treat you just like as we taken an oath to provide a service. We took an oath as an attorney to advocate on your behalf and to do the best that we can do. So regardless whether we charge you $1,500 or $5,000, you're still getting the same service. Mm-hmm. So we have people, I have high income clients. Of course, people who can afford the regular rate. I have people who cannot afford the regular rate, who are on a lower income bracket. So I do offer them payment plans. I'm a little bit more flexible with those type of clients.
You being, because I know a little bit about your background, you being, like you said, originally from Haiti and of an immigrant family, do you find yourself servicing a lot of immigrant families?
Actually, we do, and we do more. My husband is an immigration attorney, so I can tell you him more than I do. He serves about 99.9% of his clients are immigrants are from Haiti, or we have a lot of one of my paralegals and two of our assistants are Mexicans, so we do have a big group of Mexicans, and especially because we are in St. Lucie County, near Okeechobee County, which is one of our neighboring counties that we serve, we do have a big group. We do have a big pool from those communities as clients. And also, not just as clients, we participate when we actually reach out to we do a lot of service outside the office within the immigrants group, especially we volunteer. I'm on the board of Florida World Legal Services, and one of the things they do reach out to migrant workers. So normally I'll take, once a month I'll dedicate some time just to help them out. It's an hour a day out of your day just to help them fill out paperwork, or if they're having an event, we'll go to, and we also sponsor those events. We do the back to school event with the migrant workers that we do. We provide a scholarship. We have 2 scholarships that goes out to graduating high school students from the migrant community. And I don't know if you know a lot about the migrant workers that travel from place to place doing different harvesting depending on where, who's harvesting what in what period of time. So they go from here to Fort Pierce to Illinois, and they go to Indiana, and then they might be back in Fort Pierce for citrus season or something. So they go from state to state doing the same kind. So some of these kids don't have permanent places, or they might not have started out their senior year in the same high school, but finishing it in Florida because they move with the parents.
Okay.
So they're always out and needing resources. And, and some of them, the parents will leave them behind with family members just to allow them to finish the high school or whatnot. So they're always needing resources. So we are glad to help out whenever we can. And we provide 2 separate scholarships at the end of the year to 2 students.
I mean, that's a really good service. I guess for me, even just them seeing you or even your husband, you're probably playing a role model for them because they're seeing, a successful attorneys who happen to be black, who happen to have had an immigrant background being attorneys. So I'm assuming they look at you and say, hey, this person has been able to achieve what they've been able to achieve, and maybe I can also do the same thing. I would think that runs through some of their minds.
Actually, 2023, I'm so proud of this girl. Our 2023 scholarship recipient wrote me a letter. I don't know if I have it, but I think I posted it on La Familia. You wish you might know. I've seen. She's actually attending UF, and she wrote me a letter stating the only reason she picked UF is because that's the school I went to.
See, yeah.
That made me proud, and I'm like, I've never actually advocated for anybody. I advocated for them to stay in school and go to school, but I never actually tried to push University of Florida on anyone. And she said, "Oh, Mrs. Toussaint, I'm actually attending UF, and I only did that because of you, because she got accepted at 2 other schools. I don't remember, but she chose UF."
Yeah, like I said, you probably have.
Impact. I think, having a presence itself, like you said, in the community, just reaching out to a lot of these younger kids, I think it does have an impact, whether or not it's intentional or intentional. Like you said, just seeing, and you tell them, hey, look, I came here as a teenager too. I had to learn English as second language. Just talking to them and having that conversation, telling them, it's not impossible.
With that said, it leads me to the question of what would you say is some of your challenges when you first came to this country, when you decided to go to college? You kind of alluded to the issue of having over $200,000 of student loans, but what were really some of the barriers that you felt like you've had to overcome and you've been able to overcome?
Actually, I feel like the first big issue coming in is the language barrier, because as smart as you think you were, is when you're coming to a new country, and regardless, whether or not you felt like everybody at one point felt like you were speaking English or you spoke English, but it wasn't the English that people understood back then. So the language barrier was the first thing to me in coming out. I started out in high school, coming out in Connecticut, and the little English that we learned over the summer did not prepare me well enough to enter high school, public high school.
Well, in public high school, it's not only like proper English you have to learn. You got to learn the slang. You have to learn
And exactly. So, which is one of the sad things that I heard, because recently I think I saw somebody post an article. I didn't even know we didn't have ESOL, English as a second language option, in most of the state schools in Florida, the public schools in Florida. We have a huge, as you know, South Florida, we have a huge immigrant community. I didn't even know ESOL was not being offered as an option. I don't know if that's true. I just read that article and I said, well, that's what helped me. I had Ms. Velasco. She was Puerto Rican. I remember her name. And we had she was our ESOL teacher, and we had Mr. Patrick. He was also Haitian, and he taught us like history and math in Creole and French, because we had that option until we were comfortable enough to move to the main English classes. So I was kind of surprised that that's not being done right now, especially right now when we have a lot of Haitian immigrants coming in, or a lot of Spanish immigrants coming in. And I think that's putting unnecessary barriers, not
for the kids.
Yeah, not allowing those kids to excel just as much. And I think, to me, like you said, one of the things I had to overcome, I spent my first 6 months in ESOL classes before I could go to mainstream classes. And then, once you're able to communicate well enough in English, so it didn't become so much of a problem. But going to college, I think lack of guidance was another issue that I had because we moved from Connecticut to Florida. It was different.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it was a little bit different because we moved to Jacksonville, and then I was starting my 11th grade, I think 11th grade.
Okay.
And I went, and then I didn't really have anybody like within my circle that could guide me with college class, applying for scholarships, making sure I knew what I was doing when I was applying. The guidance counselor was not really helpful. The year before, I went to a different school. With my senior year, I went to a different school. So when I went in, first she was kind of like, I didn't want to say pushing me off, like, college is not for you type of thing.
Yeah.
But her actions, like I was asking about universities, and she's giving community college information.
Okay.
Like she didn't give me anything about scholarships. She didn't show me anything about like, financial aid. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, this is not for you. Try to find some, like, I felt more like she was pushing me to do something else or not go to college.
Like college wasn't an option for you for some reason.
Yeah, it wasn't an option. Mm-hmm. So the lack of guidance, I felt in a way kind of prevent me from getting where I wanted to be much faster than I was. So, mm-hmm. Thankfully, my mom was very adamant about us. My parents, I'm just not going to say my mom, my parents were very adamant about us attending college after school. So we had to find the resources on our own. So we didn't have the guidance that we thought we were going to have, like within the school system itself. Mm-hmm. So my sisters that went to community college, I was still in high school, my two older sisters. So they the one who taught me about financial aid and applying for financial mm-hmm. aid, and they the one who taught me about SATs, and because I didn't even know how to enroll
in SATs.
in SAT classes, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they guided me, my sisters and my mom actually guided me into doing what I needed to do to get into the school. Mm-hmm. So, but as far as the debt, that's a whole different, I
think you experienced what a lot of people experience trying to go to school, especially if you were what they call first generation students. To get to college, right? How are you going to pay for this?
Yeah, I feel, you're right. It was the experience, which is not uncommon, like you said, with first generation college graduate. Nobody told you. Like, I didn't know, like, when I was signing I didn't know when I was signing the student loans contract, I was actually signing a contract. Yeah. Because it didn't make sense for me that I was indebting myself for these so many years and nobody took time to explain it to me. That I was falling myself. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe, like they will I guess the intention when you went and apply is that, maybe those things are probably going to get canceled or wiped out or something. I don't know.
I mean, my experience wasn't exactly like yours, but my experience, I had assumed if you were going to college, you would have to get student loans. That's the only way to go to college. Yeah. The only way I learned was once I got to college, I realized not everybody needs student loans to
Exactly.
So that was a learning experience for me.
Yeah, which is true. It's like it's when we got there realized not everybody needed them, because for us it was the only option. It's like, okay, if you want to graduate, you have to pay for your tuition, and you don't have a trust fund that you can pull through. It's not like your parents have any extra saving that they can pull through and pay for these things, even for your housing, for example. Mm-hmm. Even after, I remember having to keep a part-time job. I work at Publix, and I had to transfer my Publix job from Jacksonville to Gainesville just so I can afford to keep paying my rent. Mm-hmm. And then people are like, why isn't your mother paying for your rent? She can barely pay for a mortgage. How is she paying for my rent? Yeah. So I had to keep a part-time job just so I can pay my living expenses. Thank God it wasn't now where you had $1,500 in rent. I remember my rent being $350.
Well, everything's a little more expensive. But I often wonder when this is just a general statement, when someone has those type of experiences, the ones like you're explaining, does that make them more resilient? Meaning, do you feel like your experiences made you more resilient? So every obstacle that you do face, it's like, okay, it's more like, what is the solution to the issue? It's not, oh, I can't do this perspective.
Well, that's the thing. I've always said, I never say I can't, because I would say that once I set goals, my only focus is to get to those goals. So the how is not so much an issue for me. Like, I'm gonna do what is necessary. So to answer your question, yes, it does make you more resilient because you are goal focused and goal oriented, and you're not really too concerned about the details in between. Somehow, maybe call it faith or whatnot, or you manifesting your words or your positions. It's you know, once you said it, you know it's going to happen. The how is not really necessarily a big issue for you. So, you know, all these experiences working into, you know, building your character. That's what I will call it. And I feel like I see even, you know, like even certain family members, I will see the same thing. The people actually took the risk, went to school, get out of your comfort zone and do what was necessary for you to get to where you want to be. I see a big difference.
So I'm going to ask this question, and you answer it any way you want. I have 3 questions. How do you see yourself? How do you identify yourself? What would you consider your mindset?
I don't know. I feel, okay, how do I see myself? I feel like I'm a work in progress, because I read recently a post that I posted in 2015. I set goals for myself, not to try to perfect who I am, but so I can have something to look forward to.
Okay.
So I feel like every 5 years I have different goals as to where I want to be. So I wouldn't necessarily say, well, I've made it, in quote, because I don't think you actually ever reach your full potential as a human being, because there's so much more in the universe that you can do and achieve. So to me, it's like, for me to say I've made it, it's mean I've achieved the whole universe.
Yeah.
I have set every goals within my capacity and achieved them. And I don't think that's necessarily true. Even when you see successful people, or you see people, whether it's celebrities or whatnot, there's always one thing. If you ask them that same question, there's gonna be always that one thing they wish they had done. Whether it was in the past or whether it's something else, they're running out of time. Like, you look at Steve Jobs, he said he wished he had spent more time with his family. Mind you, he was a successful businessman and had all this ton of money, but he felt like that part of his life was not complete. So in that same sense, that's the way I see it. I feel like in some areas I've done well, and, you know, but I still like this thing that I can still do. And my mindset is always a growth mindset, whether it's mental growth, spiritual growth, or financial growth. It's always a growth mindset that I work to try to grow and evolve as a person, as a mother and as a wife, because I do have 2 kids, and I know, since we're talking about roots and riches, and one of the things I always talk to them about, you know, what kind of legacy I want to leave my children. And I spoke to Ray recently, my son. I was speaking to him about me living and going to Michigan, where I knew nobody in Michigan. I told him, and they like, yeah, that's not funny. I said, I was the only person I know in Michigan. When I went to law school, I was the only person I knew. But I went to Michigan because I had, like I said, I had a goal in mind. The goal was to go to Michigan, complete law school, and come back to Florida. I wish I did. So I think as far as legacy wise, it's more like telling my kids that nothing, I guess you can call it cliche, but nothing is impossible if you are putting the efforts in. It's not, we can't set goals and sit back and try to see what's going to happen with our goals. We have to put the efforts and the sacrifice in it. And as you know, Jay's famous words, my brother, the work is not going to do it itself. So I always quote them that because it's true. It's like, no matter what, he really loves basketball, and I try to tell him, and I've seen that he's taking, because he's out there 10, 11 p.m. at night shooting basketball. And I told him, hey, look, Kobe Bryant did not get to be Kobe Bryant. LeBron James did not get to be LeBron James without doing anything. They practiced, they devoted their time, they put the effort into the game, into the craft. And that's how they got to be so good. So I think that's like the same mindset that I have today. It's probably the same mindset I would love for my kids to have, to keep thinking of ways to improve and be better, and putting the effort and the sacrifice in, into becoming a better person, a better human being, or whatever profession you're in, a better lawyer, a better whatever. So
if you could go back to when you were younger, say when you were starting off at UF or at law school, is there something you would go back and say, I would do different? Because I knew XYZ.
Yes, definitely not take student loans to go to spring break vacations. So.
So you would be more financially savvy.
And definitely not sign up for these credit cards, because I had no business signing up for these credit cards because I didn't need them. That's the issue. We wanted them. We wanted to have the same shiny thing other people with trust funds were having when they weren't within our mean at the time. And I think that's a mistake a lot of adults continue to make. It's, you see the shiny things that you want, but they're not within your means, and you still go out and get them. So at UF, I would not have signed up to get additional student loans that I didn't actually need at the time, and signing up for credit cards just to go out and buy things that I didn't need. In law school, maybe I would have waited the 6 months and went to, because I was on a waiting list for University of Miami, but I had already moved to Michigan. So when I got admitted to University of Miami, I'd already started in the course of transferring from Thomas Schooley to Miami and moving back to Florida. I couldn't afford it, so I was stuck. But my mom said I should have waited. I guess I should have waited, but I didn't know.
Well, you didn't know. There was no way to predict if you could.
I didn't know. And I wanted, I said, I wanted to start law school in August. I did not want to wait till January. So I packed up all my stuff and went to Michigan. I didn't want to be on the waiting list.
But so honestly, that was probably the bigger risk, going to Michigan than staying in Florida. Florida is, because your family was in Florida, that's the comfort zone. So, what about your journey to becoming an entrepreneur and starting your law practice? Is there any advice you could give people who want to become an entrepreneur? And because one of the things I understand is you're going to make mistakes, right? You learn from those mistakes, right? And you have to be willing to take risks. But from your advice, what would you say?
I would say start it. If you want, I would say don't worry about how everything else will turn out. If that's what you want to do, start it as soon as you can. And when you start up, if I didn't start my law firm when I did, I probably would have never done it. I mean, it was crazy. And my husband was working as a financial advisor and mortgage broker, so he was on commission. So my salary was the only sustainable income that we had. And I had just had a baby. Okay. And I had full coverage with the state of Florida. I had full medical coverage. I didn't have any copay. But when I weighed my option, I said, I can't stay within that comfort zone and never evolved, or I can take the risk right now. So I took the risk. Not saying, and with all humility, I've been in business for more than a decade, and we have been blessed financially because of that risk. We are able to stay in business for more than 15 years. So if I didn't take, I guess I was more a risk taker when I was younger than what I am now, because somebody looking at my position, I remember somebody looking at my position, it wasn't a good idea for you to leave a comfortable job where you have full medical coverage, you just had a baby, your husband doesn't have a steady income, and we had just bought a house. I forgot to say that. For you to just quit your job and say, hey, look, I'm starting on my own and I have no backups. That's the other thing, no backups. But I said, listen, if I don't start it now, there's always going to be a reason for you not to start. So that's what I'm getting to. My advice will be to start it, because there's always going to be a reason for you not to start. But you're not going to, and again, I'm quoting, this is Denzel Washington. I don't even know if those quotes are his quotes, but I saw them on Facebook. It's more like, your greatest joy, your greatest satisfaction is at the end of your fears. So everything you're afraid of now won't be an issue
later
once you pass those fears.
And I think that's a common, I'm sorry. I said I think that is a common issue. It's sometimes we hold ourselves back. Nobody else is holding ourselves back. We, meaning yourself, your internal fears is what holds you back from meeting your full potential sometimes, and you don't always realize it.
And I completely agree. And I said, and this is a joke. Somebody said we should all walk around with the confidence of a mediocre white man, thinking that we can achieve everything, because again, not to interpret that a different way, but it makes sense. If you can have the confidence to go to that job and put that application in, that alone is something that it's your mindset it's a mindset that you have advanced into the world, and the reception will be the same. If you come in with your head, I tell my daughter, when I go into court, I hold my heads up and I said good morning to everybody, because I don't want to be the person who walked in the courtroom with my head down for somebody to ask me, what are you doing here? Okay. So I want them to know before I even do what I need to do that I belong. So when I said the universe will reciprocate the same confidence that you show.
As a professional woman, professional Black woman who happens to also be immigrant, have you ever had scenarios where people have try to put you in your place?
All the time. I started, I was 25 when I started practicing law. So I'm always mistaken for a client. I'm always mistaken for a court reporter. And my favorite one, are you the Creole interpreter? And sometimes I'll play along. I'll say yes. I mean, you'll ask, I go to the courthouse, and then, we have the box with the attorneys where the attorneys will sit, and I'll go up and start taking a seat. The bailiff will approach me and ask me, they will say, ma'am, those are for attorneys only. Or they'll say, ma'am, you need to go back to the general, whatever, sitting area where the public will sit. So they would always try to send me back. And then I always have to, even now, I mean, it's gonna be 19 years in May. I'll be a practicing lawyer for 19 years in May, and I still have to show my bar ID depending on where I go.
Because there's no assumption. So does that mean, are you alluding to there's really still not a lot of diversity in your work? If people are always questioning if you belong here or not?
Well, yeah, I'll say there's still more to do. And I remember going to bankruptcy court when I did bankruptcy. Again, that's something about, I was much more of a risk taker when I was younger than I am now. When I did bankruptcy court for a while, and then I went to bankruptcy court maybe 10 years ago or something, and there'll be a room full of lawyers waiting, and there'll be maybe 2 female, and it's not like this was in, well, again, I became a practicing attorney in 2006, so it wasn't like 20 years or 25 years ago. You'll go into a courtroom like federal court. I said more often than my county courts or my circuit courts. I'll go, and then there'll be like 2 female attorneys in the room out of 30 attorneys.
Okay.
And or you'll see 2 black attorneys out of 30 attorneys. So I think we can still make a lot of improvement in our field. And I've seen recently, like right now, we're just starting to get like enough people to do African American Bar Association in our county. So we could never had enough attorneys to do
that. Okay.
Bar. So now we have enough black attorneys in our county where we want to start our own chapter of the bar.
Okay.
So it has improved, but when I started about 19 years ago, it wasn't like that. So that brings me back to the mentorship thing that I mentioned earlier on. So it was harder to get mentored as a new attorney because, you normally get matched with somebody with similar experiences or similar background. And for me, being a black female Haitian immigrant attorney, who they were gonna match me with?
Yeah.
I didn't have anybody. I just signed up to be a mentor with the Florida Bar because they just started a mentoring program just 2 years ago. I think they started it in 2020, where if you are an attorney who was licensed and have more than 5 years experience, they will match you with a younger attorney. And I'm like, I'm hoping that I really get matched with somebody from Haiti.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have that before. They didn't have that. It wasn't in existence. They didn't have that program, and there was nobody who could show you the rope. And when you come to they call it law practice, is a sacred field. Normally, law, you go to the big firms, or if you go to a small firm, it's a family firm. It's somebody's granddad who started the firm, and now the kids are practicing, the grandkids are taking over the firm. And it's hard for you to break in because they're not bringing you into the family. And if you could not get hired into a big law firm, you go the public interest route. And which is, I'm not saying it's a bad thing because you get the experience, but financially you are at a disadvantage. Because if you go to legal aid or you go to public defender's office or you go to the state attorney's office, your starting salary as opposed to somebody who start with a medium-sized firm or a big firm, it's nearly nowhere close. You're starting at about, I remember a friend of mine graduated the same time with me. She worked at a firm in DC. She started out at $85,000. And here I am at the public defender's office for $42,000. So the salary discrepancy alone is already keeping you behind. So you have to find a ways of, hey, how do I play catch up here? I can't wait for 20 years to get a raise. So I can be at $85,000 when she started out at $85,000.
I mean, for me, what I found, which is unfortunate, is sometimes, especially if you come from a background where you had to have taken financial aid or loans or something, your dream job may not be the job that pays you the best, but you often have to make the decision, do I want to go towards my dream job that will pay me not so much money, or do I go for the job that will pay me much more money in order for me to get out of debt, dig out of where I started in order to move forward? And sometimes those are the hard decisions that you make when you first are starting off. Right.
Exactly. So those are the things that you have, you have to consider going into it. And for me, it was like, okay, I can either stay here, I love it here, I love helping, or I can try to find a way to manage both, still enjoy what I'm doing, but also trying to pay off my debt or getting me up to par financially.
Okay, one of the other questions I want to ask is, you always hear this stereotype in Haitian families that you're either becoming a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or a nurse. You happen to become an attorney, right? So did you follow the law because that's what you always from a small child, or was that highly influenced by your background?
I think my reason to be a lawyer, actually, my reason to become a lawyer was obviously because my father was a lawyer, and he was in law for most of his life. And second, I remember my mom having an issue when I was in high school, and we had went downtown Jacksonville to this lawyer. I just didn't like the way he talked to my mom, and I don't want anybody to walk into my office and not feel welcome or not feel like I'm willing to help, regardless of the background. And I felt like this attorney actually dismissed actually there's 3 different incidents. When we first came, my brother had an issue in middle school where he got jumped by a bunch of kids. And my mom tried to address it with the school. That didn't work out. So she saw an attorney in Connecticut. Again, I was there too. So it's just like they were not willing to help her. And didn't want to give her the time of the day to listen to her. And then I saw a similar thing happen in Jacksonville. I don't remember what the issue she had, and we had went to a lawyer's office, and it's just she wasn't welcome. They weren't too concerned with what she was saying. And I guess the guy was just talking because my mom had paid a consultation and then pretty much shut the door after she left. And I don't know, that's one of the reasons I'm like, you know what? I want to be a lawyer and I want to be better. I want to do better. I don't want people to come in my office thinking that I'm just after the money, but I'm not trying to help them. So I guess in a way, to answer your question, it's both, maybe inspired. And maybe I follow the Haitian family rule or whatever you want to call it. My personal reason that everything ever since I could ever remember was like try to help and try to be a problem solver. And I feel like even now, I guess it's part of my nature, always trying to be a problem solver when people comes to me with issues. So, and I think that's why I became a lawyer.
Okay.
But it could be too because it wasn't still in me that I needed to be a lawyer. We were gonna have a lawyer, doctor, and engineers, obviously. And then, I read something like the quickest, as an immigrant, you come here, you don't come with nothing. Normally, everything you have, you left behind. So the quickest way to make it, to reach that American dream is to get a profession. And because I might not say the same thing to my kids now, but I felt for me it was important for me to hear that education was important, that I could reach my dream job, because with the way society is shaping right now, you don't need to have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree to live your dream life. But that was the only avenues we had. You know what I mean? Like back
Yeah.
then, those were the only avenues that were available to us, is to get a good education, get a profession in order to attain the dream life that we want. And it's not as easy as now, where you can just create a podcast or get an Instagram
Yeah.
account or whatever. You can't. Our realities are different from back then. So I might necessarily tell my kid, hey, look, you have to go get your law degree, or you need to become a doctor. But I'm definitely gonna, I'm gonna make sure they understand that educating yourself is part of self-improvement, is part of solidifying who you are as a person. Because you see and hear a lot of ignorant people, and again, I think that's us from falling under the scale, like not weighing education as high as
As
we
it
used to.
should. Yeah, I completely agree. I agree with the, you don't necessarily have to get a master or a bachelor degree. That's not everybody. I personally love learning, lifelong learning, but I do feel like there's been a lack of not really giving people the understanding, the value of learning something new, learning beyond your comfort zone, learning beyond your four walls or whatever. So it's something that I hope that we will focus on and change in the future, because I think it's important for everybody to really have a level of education.
Exactly, and that's one of the things I said. Not necessarily to make a living out of, trying to grab a profession or whatnot, but I still believe strongly that we should continue to educate ourselves, because that's what separates us from the rest.
So before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask one last question or one last advice, if to our audience out there. What would be your advice to people who want, I know you gave it before, but for those who are really starting the journey on entrepreneurship and are having, issues or whatever, what would you say to them right here, right now, in order for them to get over whatever issue they may be
Okay.
addressing?
I think if you're looking for, as far as like starting a business, if you wanting to be financially secure before you start a business, that's a huge mistake, because most businesses don't need money to start. You need a good reputation, you need commitment. That's what you need to start a business, not necessarily the funds itself. I have friends who have started the law practice in their home, at their home, and they've done everything virtually. So you really don't have expenses. There's so many other businesses, and I'm not talking because I'm familiar with the law and that's what I do, but there's so many other businesses. You don't need $100,000 or $20,000 or $10,000. You probably might need $500 just to get registered, get your EIN number, and just to get going. So don't let a lack of funding prevent you from starting,
Okay.
because and then the other big advice, as a self-employed, as a small business owner, my business is seasonal. And my father told me, don't spend the $10 you make in one day. So tomorrow you might not make any money. So if you make $10 today, you have to learn how to spread it out to make sure, like, tomorrow, if you make $0, you're still able to cover your expenses and make your bills. So those are my two main advice. Don't wait to start, and when you do start, whatever income that you have, that you've made, you need to learn how to manage it, because most businesses, not just, like I said, I'm a lawyer and I've been running a law firm, but I also run a distribution transportation company. But what I've learned running both businesses is, don't spend all your money. Always make sure you have a backup. Always save your money, so when your seasons are low, when you are going through the slow seasons, you are still able to meet your expenses.
Okay. Well, thank you for that advice. So with that, do you want to let everybody know where they can find you if they want to learn more about you and your business, your law firm, if they're looking for services from you? And you have a Facebook page or LinkedIn?
We do. Yes, we are on social media. We have Law Office of Jules-Toussaint is on Facebook. Actually, I think it's JT Law.
Mm-hmm.
And we also are on Instagram, JT Law as well. So those are all social media accounts that I know. So you can always go on our pages and email us, reach out to us, give us a call or email us.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you again for this incredible interview. Your insights and experiences were truly enriched us today, and I hope everybody has found this conversation valuable. And we're grateful that you took the time to sit down with me and give all your wisdom. So thank you for turning in and being in our community. Until next time, keep nourishing your roots and growing your riches. I'm Januska Jules, and this has been Roots and Riches. Take care and see you on the next episode. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me on Instagram and LinkedIn.
Thank you for having me.
You are welcome.
Everybody.
Bye.